Welcome back to Confident Cruiser, where we're talking about how to choose the perfect offshore monohull. In part 1, we talked about what's below the waterline, hull shapes, keels, rudders, and how those design choices impact performance offshore. If you missed that one, there's a link right here. I recommend going to that one first, as the fundamentals from that video are used in this one. Today, we're headed topside. We're going to get out of the water and look at the side profile of the boat and talk about shear, freeboard, and everything you need to know about rigging and deck setups as they apply to offshore boats. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to prioritize when searching for your offshore boat, what makes a boat truly capable, and even what features to avoid. Stay till the end because I'm going to go through my ideal offshore design, and we're going to talk about different boats that are good options at different price points. As always, if you like this type of content, please subscribe and turn on all notifications if you'd like to be notified when I put out more content just like this. And during the video, if you like the content or you learn something, please take the like button out for a nice chicken dinner and never call it again. Let's get into the video. All right, like I said, we're gonna get out of the water now and we're gonna take a step back and we're gonna look at the boat from the side. We're gonna talk about the freeboard and the shear. Freeboard is just a fancy way of saying how high the deck protrudes above the water, while the shear is the curve of the deck while it sweeps from stern to bow. If the designer gets these wrong, it's like adding a funnel to the front of your boat where all the waves will just crash down your boat and make it super wet. So how can you tell if this boat that you're looking at is going to be a funnel or dry? If the boat has a strong shear, where the bow sits noticeably higher than the center line, and a ton of freeboard, chances are it's going to be a pretty dry ride. Waves will glance off and the spray will be deflected. Look at this HR55. Big, beefy, and built to shrug off waves. But here comes the compromise. High freeboard and pronounced shear aren't all kittens and rainbows. More height above the waterline means more surface area for the wind to hit. It's like a sail, and that wind resistance can kill your performance upwind. Also, it's going to make the boat harder to maneuver in tight spaces like channels and marinas, and if you throw in a wide stern and dual rudders onto that situation, it just makes it a nightmare. Let me show you some examples. We're going to start with this Hansa 575. You can see from the drawing it has almost no shear, but you can see from this video that it's got a ton of freeboard. That boat sitting behind the Hansa is an Oyster 57. You can see how much lower that boat is than the Hansa. So you can't always go just by drawings, you have to actually see the boat. So what does all this freeboard do for the Hansa? It makes it a dry ride and it gives you cathedral-like space inside. But the moment things get spicy, all that freeboard is like adding a mainsail to the wrong part of the boat. Now let's swing to the other end of the spectrum and talk about a Westsail 32. This old timer has shear for days, with that front end just ready to punch through the waves. Sounds good, right? Not so fast. The freeboard on this boat is so low that despite the strong shear, the boat is still very wet. Plus, with such a low freeboard, you feel like you're sailing in a cave inside the boat. It's really small, especially in today's standards. Cramped, wet, and dark. That's what the wet snail is all about. Is it still a good boat? Hell yes, great boat. So what kind of boat would hit that sweet spot? With enough freeboard, not too much, enough shear, not too much? There's a few of them. We're gonna talk about that at the end of the video. But right now, I'm gonna take the Valiant 40. This is a classic Bluewater design built in the United States with just enough shear and just enough freeboard to be on the drier side of wet, but not sail around on anchor and be a complete pain in your ass when you're trying to maneuver the boat. It's kind of the Goldilocks of Bluewater cruising in that respect. The bow rises just enough to break the waves, and the deck is just high enough to not get soaked in most conditions. The Valiant 40 is a great boat to use on that comparison trick that I showed you last video. All you gotta do is just step back from the boat and look at it on the side profile. If it's got a very low freeboard and no shear, it's gonna be wet. There's a reason people wear wetsuits when dinghy sailing. If you see a strong shear but low freeboard, like the Westsail 32, the bow will try to fend off the spray, but with a low center, it's still gonna be a wet ride. Conversely, if it's got a flat shear and skyscraper-like freeboard, you'll stay dry, but you'll be fighting the windage of the boat every time the breeze picks up. My rule on this is if it looks balanced on the dock, it'll probably be balanced out to sea. There is a reason why most offshore sailors prefer cutter rigs to sloops. It's not just about versatility, it's about control. Having a staysail, having another sail in front, isn't just flexible, it's a lifeline. It's the ability to stay on course without having to wrestle a huge Genoa while waves are smashing the boat beam on. Let me tell you a story. I once lost my forestay in the middle of a Caribbean passage. During the pre-departure checks on many sails before that point, I didn't see that there was crevice corrosion right on the threads of the eye going down to the chain plate. 3 days after we left, boom! The whole thing snapped. I went outside and the forestay was just flailing around, flapping in the wind. We ended up getting it under control. Big thanks to my crew, Joe, for that. But it was kind of a shit show. I've made a video about it right here. I am absolutely 100% sure that rig would have come down had it not been for the staysail. And you know what's even more crazy? This wasn't a fluke. I've lost multiple stays out to sea. So here's a pro tip. Do yourself a favor and get an emergency stay in a box. It has saved me. You can buy the parts from Coligo, you can buy the line from wherever. It doesn't matter what kind of Dyneema you use, just buy some Dyneema and have it. I recommend 7 to 9 millimeter, that should do pretty much any boat. And then you can download this video of me teaching you how to do a Brummel splice, and you can make the stay any length you want, so you only need one kit. These are the skills you need to learn to be able to become that old salty bastard with all the stories. So here's the con with the staysail rig, because there's always one. A lot of these are home jobs. They start off with a sloop and they just add another stay. And when you add a stay to the deck of the boat, you're gonna mess up the deck of the boat. Sometimes they try to use like a beam inside to add torsional stiffness, but on a real cutter rig boat, that will have a chain plate that's mounted to the hull or to a bulkhead. If you're looking at a boat and you want to see from the outside whether or not it has that, usually if they have tracks for the staysail on the boat, it's probably factory. That's not true all the time. That's just one of the things you can use if you're looking online at boats. But once you get on the boat or once you see interior pictures, make sure there's something underneath other than just a big backing plate, because that's not enough. The deck can't support that sail. Remember, if it looks flimsy, it's probably flimsy. It's not rocket science. Okay, forget about the endless debates about what's better, a ketch, sloop, solent, cutter, slutter, whatever. None of them are perfect, but what matters is how fast you can get the boat reefed down and balanced when the weather decides to punch you in the face. A ketch like the Amel Super Maramoo can be very good when it comes to different sail configurations and balancing, but it's going to be more difficult if you get hit suddenly and need to reef the Genoa, mizzen, and main at the same time. Solent rigs are an awesome option if you want the deck space for the dinghy and the option to have both head sails out when you're going downwind. Now the problem with this rig, usually the way they're set up, is on the outside is like a spinnaker or a code K or a code 0, big light wind sail. And then on the inside, that inner stay is a Genoa. There's no staysail. So for light winds, great. You can have both of them open, you can have them going down. But for heavy winds, you're missing one piece. You're missing that little staysail that you can put up in a storm. It's all trade-offs. The ideal rig for offshore has different options. For instance, if you only have 2 reefs in your main and a jib, and you get hit by 40 knots of wind, it's too much wind for your main, so you're going to put that away. And then you're going to furl that headsail up until it's just a postage stamp. And that's going to give the boat so much leeward helm. The front of the boat is going to want to be pushed off course by the wind, that your rudder is going to try to fight against that, and your autopilot is going to burn out or pop a hose or whatever kind of it is, it's going to die. The worst kind of offshore boats are the ones that become unmanageable because the owners didn't have the foresight to mitigate this beforehand. So when you're looking for an offshore boat, don't be so focused on is it a ketch or a cutter or a sloop. Ask yourself, can I depower this boat? Can I balance the boat when I'm getting hammered? If the answer is no, it's probably the wrong boat for you. Along those same lines, another go, no go for me is, will the boat safely and easily heave to? Most sailors think that heaving to is only a storm tactic. That's incorrect. As a matter of fact, I use it all the time on passage. I probably heave to every day. You use it when you're tired. You use it when you catch a fish. You use it when you want to go make a sandwich. You use it if somebody falls overboard. Basically, if anything happens on the boat offshore, heave to and then deal with the problem. It makes everything better. You can use it if the crew needs to take a shit. I've literally had somebody fall off and blow right through the door. If your boat can't heave to, you might as well be offshore in a refrigerator. And here's the kicker, not all boats can do it. If your rig is poorly set up, or it's too big, or it can't balance, the boat will just never settle. It'll always be on the verge of doing a 180 and filling the sails back up and getting knocked down. It's a pain in the ass. Let's bring out our West Sail 32 again, just because I like picking on this boat. On this boat, you just back the jib, lock the helm, and you're flying pretty. You can weather a huge storm like that. In contrast, the modern flat bottom hulls like the Beneteau Oceanis 55 can't hold position because they lack the deep forefoot that we talked about in the last video and the keel shape to keep the boat steady. You'll be trying to heave to, but it'll turn into this game of will she or won't she, and she'll start drifting and turning around in circles, and it's just a nightmare. This is the other crazy part. Depending on the wave state, one tack will always be more comfortable on heave to than the other. So try both. If you're trying and trying and trying and it takes you an hour to get the boat semi-balanced to where it won't spin around in circles, that's not a good boat for offshore, I promise you. This isn't just some nice feature to have. This is critical if you're offshore. If you can't take a breather, what's your plan? Are you gonna stand at the helm for 25 hours until you're so tired that you're seeing your grandmother standing on the mast? This is a go, no go gate for me, and it should be for you too. So when it comes to rigs, everybody's obsessed about the power and the sail area to displacement, but when you're offshore, control is king. You're sailing around your house. You're not trying to win a race. Don't listen to the hype. You need something that is slower and chill and safe. I promise you that this advice will make you so much more comfortable, and that will make you more confident, and that will make you safer out to sea. Okay, let's talk about the little nitty-picky nuances that may be a big deal. So it is really easy to keep the rain out of a boat. If you go to look at a boat and it's pouring down rain and it's dry inside, you're like, wow, this is a really dry boat. Well, I hate to tell you, but every boat flexes and every single fiberglass boat leaks when you're out to sea. If you hear otherwise, they're lying to you. Your job isn't to figure out where the boat leaks now, it's where it will leak offshore. And trust me, the weak points are hiding in plain sight. I'm gonna give you a couple of tips. What really makes the difference between a soggy, wet bed and a dry, semi-dry, mostly dry cruising boat is the topside condition. You need to go around and look with a magnifying glass at any sealant that you see on the decks. If it's all cracked and there's no renewed sealant on the entire thing, probably the whole deck's gonna need to be rebedded. Let me tell you this little tidbit. On a cruising boat, you will spend a lot of time rebedding deck penetrations from the topside. You could have just rebedded that thing last year, and now it's leaking again, and you gotta take it all out and clean it all up and rebed it again. The craziest thing about this is you cannot see it from the dock. You have to go out to sea and get waves over the boat, which on a normal sea trial, you're not gonna do. So, just be meticulous when you're inspecting everything. A proper blue water cruiser has the decks set up for function, not flash. Every fitting should have a purpose, and there should be as few obstructions as possible to catch your little toes on. If you have to tiptoe around vents and deck boxes and fender holders and any other bullshit from getting up to your sails in the front, you're gonna have a big problem. Also, remember, every single hole drilled into your boat is going to be another place for water to intrude. If you see anything on the deck that looks like an afterthought, it probably is. Ask yourself, what happens when 500 gallons of wave come shooting down my boat? What's going to happen to all that stuff? Blue water decks are clean, clear, easy, wide. All this extra crap that you want to put on the deck, put it down below or put it in a locker. Okay, if you see any silicone whatsoever on the deck of a blue water sailboat, silicone is a screaming red flag that the last owner doesn't know what he's doing. Silicone is for sealing bathtubs, not boats. It doesn't bond properly, it doesn't last, it doesn't have any UV resistance, and worst of all, it contaminates everything. It makes it 10 times harder to have to clean it off and then do the job properly the second time. Hatches are always a weak point. The boat flexes one way and the frames don't really flex, so they need to be rebedded sometimes, and then the seals go bad because they're sitting in the sun, so they need to be replaced sometimes, and water just tends to find its way through hatches. So the first thing to look for in hatches are hairline cracks at the corners of the hatches. If the boat's been flexing badly, it can break the frame of the hatch. Run your hand along the frame, and if you feel any sharp corners, that's fatigue setting in. If you see a lot of sealant and it's bulging out and it's new, that's actually good. It means somebody rebedded the hatch and just didn't clean up the sealant. Just take a straight edge, cut off the sealant, and you're pretty again. If you see sealant and it's old and chalky and dusty, like I mentioned before, that's not a good sign. A lot of people never rebed their hatches, but on an offshore boat, you have to. And the worst thing is a poorly repaired hatch. If somebody's got silicone sprayed and gooped all over the outside of the hatch, it's just a nightmare. Might as well just replace the whole thing. Okay, don't get me wrong on this one. I love having a sugar screw swim platform on the back of a boat. I think it's amazing. I use that every day on my Oyster. But here's the problem. Modern boats are turning these things into crazy, complicated contraptions that look more like a transformer than a functional stern. In my opinion, the new trend of articulating swim platform doors is really not a good idea offshore. I know people make it work. I know people are gonna give me shit because they have that and it works fine. That's great. I've had one too, and it broke. What happens when a big wave hits those little tiny hinges that are holding that whole thing up? And then you have motors and you have lines and you have fulcrums and you have blocks, and any one of those things fails and you don't have a transom anymore. Offshore, simple and strong beats flashy any day. And I promise you, you don't want to spend all your time fixing your boat. We try to minimize that because the boats are already a lot of work. Why add to the problem? We were in Bermuda and we met a very nice couple on a huge boat, a CNB 66. That boat was beautiful. It was a 70-foot boat with a carbon rig, carbon sails, just powerhouse. Everything was Dyneema, everything was power. You couldn't do anything on the boat without it. Well, when they purchased the boat, it had a boom furling system on it. They were instructed to always go upwind when they wanted to reef the sail, the mainsail. If you sail from Bermuda to Canada, you have to go through the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is famous for a 7-knot northerly current. And when you get these nor'easters to come through, they're blowing so hard, it's 45 knots of wind against 7 knots of current. And if you know anything about sailing, wind versus current is always dangerous. So when they turned the boat around to reef, they got in this situation that was really bad, where there was these square waves and they were taking them on the face, and it was rolling the boat all crazy, and one of the preventers broke, and it ended up killing both of the owners. It's a super sad story. There's a great YouTube video about it here if you'd like to see it. Also, John Harries from Attainable Adventure Cruising wrote an excellent piece about this, which would be required reading if this was a course. And that link is in the description as well. Go check it out. Okay, after digging into hull shapes, rig setups, and topside conditions, it all comes down to one thing: control. Control of your sails, control of your motion, control of your comfort. Offshore sailing isn't about a boat with flashy features or real fast or the biggest mast. It's about choosing a boat that'll keep you safe and, more importantly, sane when the ocean decides to throw a tantrum and beat the shit out of your boat. Here's a quick recap of what we're looking for. Deep 4-foot, a moderate displacement, and a balanced keel shape are your friends offshore. These elements work together to reduce pounding and give you a smoother ride. Watch out for wide, flat hulls. They're great at the dock, they're very fast and stiff on sail, but upwind they are horrible and they will make your passage a nightmare. The best offshore rig choice is not the fastest or the most powerful. It's about balancing the sails and reducing them easily in a blow. The cutter rig, the staysail, offers flexibility, but it depends on how it's mounted. This part is crucial. Make sure every stay is reinforced. Every chain plate leads to a bulkhead or the hull. Everything else is just sloppy work. Think of your keel kind of like your suit of armor. That's what's going to hit the bottom first. A full keel will just shug off a grounding. And it'll track like it's on rails when you're sailing. But it'll be a dog in tight spaces. Very difficult to maneuver. A fin keel is very nimble in tight spaces, but also more delicate when it comes to a grounding or hitting a log or hitting a container. When it comes to rudders, if you're going to use one, put a skeg in front of it. There's no reason not to. Protect that thing. But when it comes to modern designs, a good dual rudder setup can be just as good because you have a spare and you can get just as much safety and control. Clear, simple, and solid. That's what you want in the deck of an offshore boat. Every fitting should be secure, every hatch should seal properly, and if you see silicone anywhere, that's a big red flag. What it usually implies, unfortunately, is there's other things that were done incorrectly. Keep the moving, articulating parts down to a minimum. No dinghy garages, no articulating aft transoms. Out to sea, you want fewer parts to break, not more. When the deck and transom is clean, simple, and built like a tank, you're looking at a boat that can take you anywhere. High freeboard and strong shear can keep you dry, but remember, it's all about balance. Too much windage can turn the boat into a weather vane in high winds. The trick is to find the right balance between a dry ride and a stable sail. Like we talked about last video, every blue water boat is an amalgamation of a bunch of different compromises. But the right compromise is about balance. If your deck and your rig and your keel and your rudder all are working together, it's a beautiful thing. It'll keep you safe, dry, happy, keep your crew happy. The trick is, if you focus on that and you know that the boat is built for what you're doing, you don't have to worry. It's such a stress-free event having 40, 50, 60 knots. If you trust the boat and you know it was built for that, it makes it easy. It makes it so much easier to make decisions. Finally, as promised, here's my pick of offshore cruisers at different price points. Now, I don't have time to go through every single boat available, so if there's a boat that I missed and you really like it, leave a comment below and let me know. Okay, if you're in this group, you're gonna have to break out the tools because usually the cruising boats that are sub 100K need a little work, which isn't always a bad thing. You know, you get to learn the boat, you get to learn how to fix it, and you get to put it together yourself so you know your boat really well. Okay, first one is the classic Cal 40. Fast, proven cruiser. This is a racer cruiser with a cult following, and I've actually seen somebody sail this boat in and out of a marina slip. The Cabo Rico 38, heavy displacement, beautiful lines, and ride as smooth as a Cadillac. Just don't be in a hurry. Hans Christian 38T, built like a wooden ship from a bygone era, well, except for the fiberglass. Gorgeous, but she will test your docking skills. Passport 40. This is Bob Perry's masterpiece. Strong, sleek, and capable of handling anything the ocean throws at it. Tayana 42, ocean going, heavy and roomy for the length, and a great choice if you want space and comfort. Island Packet 37, a bit slow, but the full keel, solid build, and interior space make it a dependable long-distance cruiser. Baba 35, heavy, beautifully built, and ideal for solo sailors or cruising couples. Last one is the Hallberg 37. This is a traditional design that's built like a tank. It's a bit tight below, but these boats will outlast anything else at this price. All right, this is a really sweet spot for boat buying. If you're looking for a 40 to 45 foot boat, maybe even up to 50, that's been lovingly cared for, this is your pocket. Some boats to look for are the Pacific Seacraft 40. This is a no-nonsense, go-anywhere cruiser with impeccable build quality and resale value. One of my favorite all-time boats, the Valiant 42. This is the gold standard for serious cruisers. Strong, fast, easy to single hand. Just keep an eye on older models for blisters. The Mason 44 is a heavy, capable, and exudes old world charm. These boats are built to be offshore. The Naiad 440, this is a Swedish boat. Sail fast, live well, and feel secure. This is an underrated gem in my opinion. The Choi Lee Offshore 41, this is elegant, beautiful, and capable. A cruiser with style and substance, but you better like varnishing because there's a lot of wood outside. Hylas 44, the Hylas boats are great pedigree and a good blend of speed, space, and elegance. And lastly is the Swan 42. This is a beautiful boat, very capable, and Swans are always built with the best equipment. Okay, if you're in this category, you're looking for a meticulously maintained older boat or a slightly used newer model. This is a really nice category to be in the boat buying phase. You can get some really, really nice boats for this price. Such as the Hans Christian 48T. Everything about this boat screams safety at sea. It's overbuilt and you'll feel invincible out there. The Hallberg-Rassy 46. This is one of my favorite boats in the world. Classic Swedish quality, designed to keep you comfortable no matter what's happening outside. Oyster 485 is a solid glass hull and one of the best sailing boats in the world. I know from experience, I owned one for 4 years. The Tyana 48 is a big, comfortable blue water cruiser with great interior volume, built to last. The Amel Super Maramu is the cult cruiser, catch rigged, reliable, easy to handle solo, just a great all-around boat. The Mason 63, this yacht just oozes pedigree. She's big, thick, full fiberglass, and made for high latitude exploring and remote anchorages. The Hylas 46, a serious long distance cruiser that balances performance with comfort. The Stevens 47, this is a cruiser's dream. Well built, well designed, and sails like a charm. Ideal for circumnavigating. And lastly is the Contest 48. This is a Dutch-built boat, very, very good quality, with strong engineering and a reputation for being ocean-ready right out of the box. Okay, if you've got deep pockets and are looking for something more turnkey, like get in it and go, or brand new, let's see some of the options that are available to you. The Oyster 495, this is the epitome of luxury and capability. They're very expensive, but very, very nice and will keep you safe. The Bluewater 56. This is one of my favorite boats, skeg-hung rudder, very smartly designed and crafted for serious offshore work. Best in class build quality. The Kraken 50 we've mentioned in many parts of these videos as the benchmark for a 50-foot boat. This is a no compromise cruiser built for heavy weather, high latitudes, and crossing oceans. The best of our 45, this is an aluminum build, super seaworthy and capable of navigating to extreme conditions. This is one you want to go through the Northwest Passage or around Cape Horn. The Garcia Exploration 45 or 52. This is Jimmy Cornell's boat of choice, built to endure ice, storms, and anything else the ocean throws at you. Discovery 55, comfort, style, and performance all rolled into one long-range cruiser. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like more information on any of the topics that we covered, please look in the description. I've got a ton of links that I thought might help you guys. If you learned something, please hit that like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos just like this one in the future. Much love. See you next time.